Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mind for Life podcast. My name is Jeff Bogaczyk, and today I am going to be talking with you about the foundations for wise conflict management. So if you struggle with managing conflict, if you struggle with dealing with other people in difficult conflict situations, I'm going to give you an entrance into that I think will be huge and beneficial for you as you are engaging in those situations. And so I hope you will stick around. By the way, this episode is sponsored by Charm XP. If you've not used Charm XP, give it a try. You'll find the link in the show notes for this episode. Charm XP is an AI-powered app that allows you to practice your conflict management. It allows you to practice difficult conversations. It allows you to practice just having conversations and meeting people and engaging people and learn those skills. And so Charm XP, great app. It gives you feedback in real time. It's all powered by AI. Now, it's no substitute, of course, for talking with real people. But what it does do is it allows you to practice and develop and hone your communication skills. So give it a try and check the link in the bio. Let's get started. Conflict management. What's the beginning point? Understanding a couple of things. First of all, you have to manage it. You may not always resolve it. So if you want good relationships, if you want to have a more fulfilling, happier existence on the planet, you live with people. We live in a world where we are, as one philosopher said, human being is in essence part of it being with one another. There are other people in this world. You have to deal with them. You can't get away from them and just go live in the desert forever. Some people do it and maybe they have a happy existence, but there is something about having to deal with people. And people problems are usually communication problems. Hear me when I say that. People problems are usually communication problems. So how do we do it? We manage conflict. How do we manage conflict? Well, one skill for managing conflict is this: being able to forecast when it might be coming into your relationships. Being able to be aware when conflict is on the horizon. I think that is an incredible skill that you can foretell, that you are able to predict when conflict might be coming your way. Why is that important? So you can prepare for it. So you can manage it. So you can develop a plan and a strategy to deal with it. And the best way, let me say it this way, the best way to do that is to recognize when it might be coming. If you can do that, if you can recognize when conflict might be coming into your life, you have a head start. And you just leveled up your ability to manage conflict well, because now you can see, hey, if I do this, conflict might be coming down the road. Whenever we have a discussion about this type of thing, that might be an issue for conflict. So let me give you what conditions tell us conflict is coming. Of course, there are nonverbals that you should be able to recognize in another person. Their tone of voice, they start speaking faster. The volume goes up. Their voice gets a little bit higher pitched, right? Their nonverbals, their facial expressions. They're being more animated. They're looking angry, right? All of those things you should be able to pick up on. That is like reading the body language of another person to tell that they are getting emotionally involved, that they are frustrated, angry, and they are coming at you. So some people are able to mask that well. You know, they can come in very calm, cool, and collected, and you still are going to get conflict, but it's just in a different way. So managing and understanding nonverbal signals is one. Number two, whenever there are limited resources, that is the potential for conflict. So limitations force priorities and force people to compete, in a sense, for those resources. So, of course, limited resources have always produced wars, global, what we would call conflict. When this person wants this resource, be it oil or diamonds or gold or whatever the resource is, or fertile land, go back through history, or the access to the river, or access to the fish, or access to food. Whenever there's limited resources, there's going to be conflict and fighting over those resources. Think of it now in terms of things that might be most applicable to you. Money. Money is a finite resource. Most of us do not have all the money we could ever want. And so money is limited, and there is competition for that resource. We are competing for money. When the grocery bill, we've got a certain amount of money in our budget, and myself and my wife have different priorities on where that money should be spent, and that we should be spending this much on groceries and not this much on groceries. And so when we recognize that money is an issue, whenever we're going to talk about money, or whenever we're going to spend money, whenever we're going to deal with money because it's a limited resource, there is the potential for conflict. So recognize that up front. Talk about space. You live in a house with someone. Space is limited. If you're in a smaller house, space is limited. If you're stuck in an apartment with 2 or 3 people, space is limited. That's a potential conflict situation. We're going to argue about how much space you're taking up, and that you're not giving me my space, and I want more space than you're giving. That's a potential for conflict. Whenever you talk about time, we have a calendar. There's 24 hours in a day. It's limited. And there is competition and or conflict over who gets what time. If I'm giving up my time, I'm giving up my time for someone else. That could be a potential for conflict. So those are limited resources that you can recognize that there's a potential conflict might be down the road. Additionally, whenever there is a situation where you are competing with someone. Competing over what? Competing over things like status. Who's going to be the boss? Right? Whose priorities are going to take precedence? Whenever there are expectations, whose expectations are going to win out? There is competition over expectations. You get in arguments with your boss because there are expectations that your boss has, and there are expectations that you have. Well, whose expectations are going to win out? Whose expectations of how the project is going to be handled are going to win out and take precedence? That is a potential for conflict. Whose preferences are going to win? Because we all have preferences about the way things should be for us. I want things a certain way. They want things a certain way. When we are talking about issues of preference, that's the potential for conflict. When we are talking about values, what's important, what I believe, whose values are going to win, whose values are going to take precedence, that's a potential for conflict. And so any one of those situations where there is a competition for whose status, whose priorities, whose preferences, whose expectations, whose is going to take precedence, that's a potential for conflict, because we don't always align on those things. And I disagree with you on certain things, and you disagree with me on things, and I disagree with them. Well, whose is going to win out? So recognize that that's coming. right? Those are things that you should be able to go, okay, this is going to deal with our priorities. Why is it a potential for conflict? Because I know we're going to both have different ideas on where we're going out on Friday night. That could be a conflict situation. Or I know this is going to be a potential for conflict because I know we're both going to have different expectations on how the project should be managed, or on how we're going to make the presentation for this sale, right? All of these things happen in the workplace and in your relationships. Almost every issue is one of these things, right? Who's going to win? Whose priorities are going to take? Whose values? Whose expectations? Whose preferences? Whenever we're talking about that, or whenever that's an issue, and that is a lot of the issues that we have with other people, that's a potential for conflict. So let me give you some basics that I think are important, and I'm going to give you some wisdom, if I can say it that way, on how to handle these things. Number one, my professor told me this, and I thought it was important, and it has guided everything that has been helpful to me. And it's this: not every relationship in your life needs to be preserved. If you're a nice person, you want to preserve relationships with people as best as you can, right? We want to preserve relationships. We want people to like us. Not everybody's like that, but we generally want to get along with other people. We want them to like us, but not every relationship must be preserved. And it's important to know this. What are the relationships in your life that are important to you? Because the priority of your relationship with someone will and should guide how you manage that conflict. You're going to put more effort in. You're going to put more, you're going to maybe compromise more in the relationships that really matter to you because you want to preserve those relationships. Now, some relationships you want to preserve because that person is important to you. They're a family member, or they're spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They're important. So you want to make that relationship work. Some relationships you have to be with. You work with someone, you're in a regular, group with someone or whatever. And so you have to kind of live with that person. So you're going to manage, but other people that you don't, or, even some of those people that you're like, I'm not really close to this person. I'm not going to get close to this person. I don't know that I need to preserve this relationship. That will determine how you manage conflict. That's going to determine how much effort you put in. That's going to determine whether you're going to work towards a resolution or not. Because sometimes if that relationship doesn't need to be preserved, you can say, you know what, we're going to disagree on this and let's go our own way, because we don't have to resolve it, because the relationship isn't important to you. So understand how valuable the relationship is. If you can get that part, how important is the relationship to me? You can manage conflict better, and you can at least understand where to put your efforts in when it comes to managing and ultimately, hopefully, resolving that conflict. Number two, reframe how you look at conflict. A lot of people are afraid of conflict. They don't want to get into conflict with other people because they get fearful, they get anxious, it causes stress, they don't want the other person yelling at them. Think of this, though. Conflict is a catalyst in your relationship. Without conflict, relationships, I would say, are not healthy. They stagnate. They just become the same. Now, for some people, that's good because they're in a good relationship and they're content with that. But conflicts are the things that propel your relationships to greater intimacy, or, if not done well, they can propel your relationships to greater decline. Let me give you an example. You're in a relationship with someone, and you find out that your values on this subject don't align. How do you manage that? You have to sit down and talk about your values, and you have to work through how meaningful those things. You have to have conversations. You have to have communication. You have discussion about those values and what's important to you and what's important to the other person. And if you can navigate that well, you grow closer to that person. Maybe now you begin to share their values, or maybe they become to share your values. Why it's interesting because politics has divided families. Politics has divided families. Why? Because people have different values. And they come to find out, wait a minute, you don't think this about this president or this senator or this policy? Wait a minute, what? Now all of a sudden you're either figuring a way to resolve that, and unfortunately most people will put aside important relationships for political values, and that's what we do, right? Preferences. And I guess the question in those situations is it a value or is it a preference? Right? Is it something that I'm going to live and die for this value, or is it just something you prefer? Because you can put aside preferences. Or maybe it's a priority, but it's not on the top priority list, right? But when you have those conversations, you start to grow your relationships. When you navigate through those things, when you work through your values and your expectations and how you're going to handle money and how you're going to deal with limited space and limited time, right? When you're going to navigate those things, and how do you navigate those things? You do it through conversation and communication. I mean, communication is relationship, ultimately, right? There is no relationship without communication, because communication, words, language, body language, nonverbals, that is the medium, if I can use that term, through which our relationships are navigated. Relationship is communication. And so working through those things in conversations is how you grow your relationships to greater intimacy. And so look at conflict as a catalyst for growth, right? In that sense, we can grow closer if we can walk through this together and figure it out. And in that sense, when you have good conflict management, it puts you in a position to grow your relationships. It puts you in a position to develop and could become closer to someone and get to understand them better. It allows you to confront problems together and to collaborate and to come up with good solutions together, right? This is where you learn how to live with someone else. You learn how to be in relationship with someone else. You learn how to give and take. And that's really what relationship is. In fact, give and take, let's call it something else. Conflict management, right? Because isn't conflict management giving and taking and accommodating someone else and integrating with the other person? That's conflict. That's managing the conflict. What's the conflict? It is when we disagree or when we don't understand or when we have different priorities and different expectations, that when we don't rub the other person well in that sense. And what has to happen is we need communication. We need conversation to walk through those things. So let me, in closing, give you a couple things to think about. Number one, expect conflict. You're two different people. In fact, you're not the same as everyone else. And how boring would that be, right? If we were the same as everyone else. What a boring life. What a boring world. What a boring existence. We're different people, and we've got different thoughts and different perceptions and different interpretations and different priorities and perspectives and preferences and expectations and values. And that's a beautiful thing. But because of the thing that is so beautiful, there's going to be conflict. So we should expect it. Just being in proximity to other people, there's going to be conflict. But reframe it. It's a catalyst to grow. Oh, we can figure out that we don't agree. Oh, we can figure out that you think this and I think that. Oh, that's interesting, right? Conflict is an opportunity. So expect it. And then, as I just said, think of it as an opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity to grow your relationship. And if you can expect it and think of it as an opportunity to grow your relationship with the other person, you can respond with great wisdom in that situation, and you can do it better. So these are the foundations for how you can start understanding conflict management, how you can manage it better, how you can get into those things. And we're going to do a series on this over the next couple of episodes on how you can develop good conflict management skills, build your relationships, grow closer to one another, and have a happier and more fulfilling life. So thanks for tuning in today. If you've liked this or it's been helpful, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate that. Share it with a friend. And like I said, we're going to go over the next couple of weeks how to develop and grow your conflict management skills. So thanks for listening today, and have a great week.